everybody. George Salamis, President and CEO. Really happy to be talking to you all once again this morning. Second time in 2 weeks, as a matter of fact, on the heels of our groundbreaking PFS that we put out 2 weeks ago that talked about economic heap leaching and milling to the tune of about 163,000 ounces a year. I urge you to have a look at that PFS presentation in the context of what I'm about to talk to you about today. But we're really pleased to be back at it. Our shareholders should expect nothing less from us. We are developers, but we're also explorers. So we've got some great exploration news to talk to you about this morning. Really two key highlights with respect to what we've put out this morning in the form of a news release. One, I think the headline piece here is really exciting. So the U.S. Bureau of Land Management has given us a permit to proceed with underground exploration development in the form of a green light to proceed at our election with getting ourselves underground at Florida Mountain. And this is really important because what it shows is a willingness from the permitting authorities, in fact, the lead permitting agency amongst the feds in the US, in Idaho, giving us this endorsement with respect to something that is exploration and development related at the Delamar project. And we're really happy that they worked cooperatively with our permitting group to get this permit, this green light for us to proceed underground in not a long period of time. I'll give you more details on that. Second, and last but not least, we've got some great exploration results to tell you all about this morning. 10 holes that really sort of nail down this concept of what could be at Florida Mountain at depths below the bulk tonnage resource, which was very recently the focus of a PFS study. And so before I kind of get into the guts of the presentation, maybe take you through some of the more sort of highlight key results from this. So we reported 10 holes today, all of which look great. Here are some highlights. Hole 130, 1.79 grams per ton gold, 45.17 grams per ton silver, which equates to 2.37 grams per ton gold equivalent over 90.98 meters. So that's a great hit in of itself. In and amongst there's a really great high-grade hit of 11.57 grams per ton gold equivalent over 12.65 meters. And there's a lot of high-grade gold and silver that make up that intercept. So it's pretty exciting. Hole 134, 1.65 grams per ton gold, 14.24 grams per ton silver, which equates to 1.83 grams per ton gold equivalent over 97.54 meters. So that's a really solid hit. And again, in and amongst that hit, there's some great high grade, 6.93 grams per ton gold equivalent over 21.64 meters. That's a solid high grade hit in of its own right. 77.15 grams per ton gold equivalent over 1.52 meters. And you get the picture. There's lots more in that news release with respect to high grade that you can have a look at. You all know where we're situated geographically in southwestern Idaho, just southwest of Boise right there, and just kind of zooming in onto the project area now. So what you're looking at right now is the totality of our exploration concession down in southwestern Idaho, the Delamar project. It's about 100 square miles. It really is a district of its own right. Lots of historical gold and silver has been mined here, and actually up until very recently by Kinross up until the year 2000. So it's got this glorious history of production from low sulfidation epithermal gold and silver. And now just zooming in to the two principal resource and reserve areas. And we're allowed to call it a reserve now, finally, because we have a PFS study, which we put out 2 weeks ago. So we've got proven and probable reserves of nearly 3 million ounces of gold equivalent, which make up this PFS, which we showed last week, and a total resource of 5 million ounces of gold equivalent. And so have a look at our PFS that we put out a couple weeks ago, because it goes through a great amount of detail in terms of the breakdown of resources and reserves on the project. And now kind of looking at Florida Mountain from the side on, from the west towards the east. And I'm going to attempt to kind of draw in the resource boundaries from a really rough perspective, but essentially, from the top of that ridge all the way down to below this haulage road is essentially the bulk tonnage low-grade resource, which was the focus of the PFS, specifically when it came to Florida Mountain. Below that, the results that we're highlighting today, largely speaking, all occur in the form of these high-grade shoots of gold and silver right below this resource. So what we would call this sort of the epithermal high-grade vein feeder structures, if you will, that fed the upper part of this system at the top of the mountain, which was the focus of the study. And just kind of zooming in now back to a digital view of Florida Mountain, you can see the breakdown of reserves here. The red blocks are the bulk tonnage oxide and transitional material, which is fair game from a heap leach perspective. And underneath there, you can see the sulfide, or what our engineers call the non-ox, which is the millable sulfide with great recoveries from Florida Mountain. And so just to kind of give you a bit of a comment on what we've just permitted, essentially what we would do from a permitting perspective is we would sort of enter the side of the mountain somewhere in these parts down here and go transversely into the mountain with an adit, with a portal, obviously moving on to an adit and setting up drill bays from underground to drill the depth extension of this high grade, which we've highlighted for the last 3 years, but we've never really put it into a study. The great news is that the BLM now has given us the authorization, the green light to proceed underground with this exploration program, which is really great news. Obviously, we're really happy about that. For those of you who would have sort of attended some of my webinars in the past couple of weeks, we talked a lot about this great PFS study that produces a lot of gold and silver over a very long period of time. We also talked about some of the exploration upside cases for this project. And over the course of the last 3 years, we've been doing a lot of drilling at Florida Mountain, really demonstrating this high-grade upside potential below the mountain, which is really tied to the history of Florida Mountain itself that goes back to the late 1800s, which I've talked about previously. So to date, we've drilled over 100 holes. In fact, if you add these in, we've got about 110 holes now that really define a lot of high grade in the form of these plunging chute geometries below the resource itself. Most of the high grade that we've reported in the last 3 years has not made it into any study of any kind, not a resource, not a PEA or a PFS. So there's a lot of opportunity there. And so what I talked about in the last couple of weeks in terms of upside cases is the what if scenario. What if we can bring some of this high grade from Florida Mountain first into a resource and then into a mine plan? What could that look like in terms of adding to this 163,000 ounces a year of annual production? And so the best way to do that would be from underground, and the BLM has just given us the authorization to do that. So we're obviously really excited by that. I'm just going to jump into where some of these results lie relative to the resource model. You can see a lot of them there. I'm not going to go through them or read them out in any detail, but you can see there's some really solid hits there in and amongst this cloud of high grade, which I'm about to pull up in a second. But take a look at where these results lie in relation to the open pit, which was the focus of the PFS study. And as you can see, some of these bulk tonnage runs are either within the open pit geometry or partially outside it, but there's a lot of high grade that sits right at the margins of the open pit, which we believe forms these chutes that plunge below the bulk tonnage low grade resource, which really merit a lot of further exploration. And in fact, when you start to look at this sort of cloud of high grade from 3 years worth of drilling, again, none of this material has made it into any form of study, which is really, really interesting. So that provides the upside opportunity for this project going forward. And just to kind of end off here, so what are we going to do next? So right now we're fine tuning the study that would look at the cost benefit of going underground, that would look at the cost per meter of drilling underground, the time frames that would be required to bring some of these high grade hits first into a resource and then into a reserve and then into a mine plan. And so we'll be talking about that in the weeks and months to come, but really exciting, really could be a great complement to what we've just done with this bulk tonnage PFS and the kickoff to permitting. And so I'm looking forward to talking to you more about what's to come in the weeks to come, in the months to come. Obviously, with permitting going, it allows us to pivot back to exploration and resource growth, which is something that we've been really, really good at doing on the project. Thanks a lot, and look forward to speaking to you soon. Take care.